actual real live books. And that, rabbis are sort of in many ways in the book business. I had a professor in rabbinical school who once said that if you don't like books from an aesthetic standpoint, you're sort of in the wrong business as a rabbi. And those who've been in my office at the Ermis campus know there's no shortage of books there. And actually, if I could turn this whole camera and everything around, the wall that I'm staring at in front of me here also filled with books. And we have a house full of books. My 4-year-old daughter is a voracious consumer of books, loves to be read to, countless books every night. And even our newborn, we've started reading to and loves them as well. And it occurred to me, actually, as we were sort of going through some of my daughter's old books and trying to convince her that we should migrate them to her little brother's room because she hasn't read them, but she doesn't want to let go of them. That's such a, I think in many ways, such a piece of sort of the fabric of Judaism. I'm someone who absolutely, first thing I look at when I walk into people's houses are their bookshelves. And to a certain extent, whether or not there are books in someone's house, whether or not there are bookshelves, because I think it says a lot. And I think that many of us sort of take that for granted. We take reading to our kids at night for granted. We take having, a ample supply of books for granted, and kind of all the literacy issues that go along with that. And I'm sure Ruth will get into this, but all of the research and statistics that go along with, kids who are read to versus kids who are not read to, and what that does for them in terms of their, future life and education. So I'm thrilled today. It's all a very long way of saying I'm thrilled today to have my dear friend Ruth Stalford with us. I've known Ruth a very long time, and we were just talking about her 13-year-old son, Jack, who I remember when he was in one of the very first classes in the nursery school at the Glazer campus, when we were just like trying to pretend like we had any idea what we were doing starting school there. And, not to mention he's a good USC football fan, which, right, is the most important thing about him. So Ruth, I'm so thrilled that you're here today. I remember, dinner with Ashley and Stanley, however many years ago, when you were just kind of dreaming this thing up and thinking about the Book Foundation and all this amazing work you've been doing. So I'm thrilled to get to share it with a bunch of our folks today. So without further ado, Ruth, welcome. Thanks for being here. Maybe let's just sort of start there. Like, tell us, on the broadest level, sort of what is the Book Foundation? What do you guys do? What have you been super busy, you were telling me, doing the last 4 months?
Right. So why don't if we can go back to sharing the screen, that would be great. Is it shared yet or no?
I think you can just hit share screen on the bottom of your.
There we go. Let's go back. You see that?
Yes.
Good? Okay. So I'm just going to back up a tiny bit. My organization, the umbrella organization, is called Make Good, as you can see. And we have 2 distinct programs, the Book Foundation and the TAY Shop, and I'll explain what those things are. As Rabbi Beau was saying, we talked about this years ago. We started in earnest in 2014. With the idea being that we provide immediate, tangible impact on the ground. So everything that we do, whether it's through the TAY Shop or the Book Foundation, actually has an immediate impact. So you come and you give your day's work and you feel like you've accomplished something. You can actually see the fruits of your labor, as well as there being long-term impact with everything that we do. So we have these 2 programs, the Book Foundation and the TAY Shop. The Book Foundation is fairly obvious, but I'm going to get much deeper into what we've been doing since COVID. We provide new books, and our TAY Shop provides clothing and essential items to kids aging out of foster care. It's very simple. We treat children with dignity and respect. And for the most part, everything that we provide is brand new. There are other circumstances, and we'll get into that as well. So as I said, the TAY Shop is a space. We have a really beautiful office that I'm sitting in right now. We have a huge space on Washington near Fairfax. We have what looks like a high-end clothing store, and it is a place where transition age youth, those are the kids aging out of foster care, they can come and shop for clothing, for college, for career, for just their utility stuff, sweats, t-shirts, underwear, socks, hygiene products, backpacks, all of those kinds of things. They can come shop free of charge. We also, to provide incentive for a lot of these incredible workshops that are out there with financial literacy, nutrition literacy, we invite those organizations to come and have a workshop here with the incentive that after the workshop, all of their young people get to go shopping. So that's what our, generally speaking, is what the Transition Age Youth Shop is. The Book Foundation is focused on closing the achievement gap. And by flooding communities that are underserved with books. And we do that in a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure many of you know all of this, but in low-income neighborhoods, there is one book for every 300 children in the neighborhood in their homes. And that is a staggering statistic, and it's real. And I will tell you, when we get into this a little bit more, I have seen that play out big time these last few months. And we have been working really hard to help.
Sorry to interrupt, Ruth, just because it's so shocking. 1 to 300?
Yeah. Because look,
that's not even, I can't even fathom that.
You can't. None of us can. You can't imagine not having something to read with your child at night. You can, and the ripple effect of that in terms of speech, language development, in terms of bonding with your family, I mean, it is enormous what the effect is on education outcomes just by that. And so that was part of the reason we started this program in the first place, was that the idea that we could actually do something by flooding communities with books was something we really felt like we could do, right? So it just seems so simple, right? So, and it's staggering, but that's real. I mean, think about it, these families, that's not what they're going to spend their money on, right? And now libraries are closed and schools have been closed, and it's been a bit of a disaster. And I'll get to that. So the way that we have been working with the books is we do a couple of different things. One is we will go into communities and partner with a lot of other organizations when they're having some sort of an event. And we will create a pop-up, and it looks like a bookstore. And the kids can come through and shop for a personal library, and obviously all free. The other thing that we've been doing is we've been seeking Title I elementary schools that are kind of under the radar, charter schools and in-district schools that do not have the space or staff for a library. And we will go into those schools and we will create what we call a book nook. And that is a smaller library that is completely curated to what the school's needs are. We use a really simple categorization system that isn't as involved as the Dewey Decimal, so that it can be managed with by staff and student. And we have a system that works on an iPad, a very simple system, so that you just literally scan the barcode on the book and it checks the book in and out. And another Temple member, the Nasiris with Melrose Mac, are our partners on providing all of that technology for all the schools. So,
Sandy, you'll be very happy for the plug.
Yes. So we have been putting in these book nooks in schools that don't have any library. And so, we'll go in and in a couple of days, they will have a functioning library. And it's been really transformative for these schools. And it's also so hard to imagine that there are schools that don't have libraries, but there are lots of them. So we've been doing that. Just a quick thing about the shop and about transition age youth and foster care. 4,000 kids age out of foster care here in LA County. 50% of these youth end up homeless or in jail by their 24th birthday. And 71% of young women exiting foster care become pregnant by the age of 21. So by offering our shop as an incentive for some of these workshops, the workshops are intended to mitigate some of these negative outcomes, right? So we provide And not to mention also, when kids are going for job interviews, they don't have the right clothing. And so we make sure that everyone leaves with what they need. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but it's a very personalized experience. The stuff we have here is really lovely. Because of the pandemic, manufacturers have, and because we've been on the radar for a little while, manufacturers have been sending us the most beautiful clothing you can imagine because they have so much stock. So we've really been getting great stuff. And it's so, every time someone comes here, they're always amazed at how nice everything is. And that's, sort of a value statement for us too. It's really important that we provide really nice stuff. These kids are used to hand-me-downs. So back to the Book Foundation and what we've been doing.
Can I stop you for a second? Can you go back to the last slide?
Say it again?
Can you go back to the last slide?
Yeah.
Because the last bullet point, can you say more about that, the workshops? Yes.
So when you're in the system, as you approach a certain age, it used to be 18, now they've dropped it almost to sometimes 14 to 16. When you approach 18, you literally fall off a cliff in terms of what services are available to you. And so they have made, DCFS, the Department of Children and Family Services, and the county have made an effort to sort of create plans for these kids so that they don't fall off a cliff. And a lot of that plan includes mandatory attendance to workshops that are life skills focused, financial literacy, nutrition literacy, social emotional intelligence. But to be frank, a lot of those workshops are extremely boring and clinical and probably don't resonate in the way that everyone would hope it would, right? So we make an effort to seek out other nonprofits that are mentorship programs that are doing some of these pieces, right? We don't duplicate effort. We try to find other people doing really good stuff. We invite them here. And so we ask them to come here and host those workshops because they're far more entertaining. The materials always seem to be more interesting, and the kids don't feel like this is something they have to do, which is also part of it. So we have a whole bunch of partners that will come here and run those workshops. And, and with the, incentive of the shopping afterwards, we have really good attendance. So was there a specific question out of that?
No, I was wondering kind of just what they were, but also the marriage between that and, the clothing, sort of the carrot that gets them to participate. Right. Yeah. Okay.
So then when everything started to shut down, we as an organization knew very well that low-income communities and elementary school students in particular were going to suffer severely with this shutdown. Because no matter what you all hear in the press and what the schools are telling you, and I'm not saying people aren't trying really hard to fix these problems. That's not what I'm saying. These families do not have functioning devices, do not have hotspots, and are so stressed beyond so much of what we could possibly understand. So we knew when the schools were shutting down, the lifeline for these kids was like snipped. So we also know they don't have any books in their homes, right? So we immediately reached out. We partnered with another literacy organization that also does something similar to what we do, but different, and decided to combine forces. And we reached out to LAUSD and Compton Unified Title I elementary schools and said, if we can provide you with a bundle of 3 books per student by grade, and we can get those safely to your school, do you have a mechanism to get those books into the hands of your students? And there was not a single, this is a terrible idea. Everyone was like, yes, when can we do it? And so we began partnering with schools, and we found a warehouse out in Simi Valley that does a lot of the school book fairs. And because all their book fairs were canceled, they had a huge warehouse of books. And we asked them to start bundling books for us. And so we would deliver those bundles to the schools, and they would have grab and goes at the school sites for materials, for picking up devices and all that. And so we immediately, we didn't rest, started distributing these book bundles. And so to date, we have distributed about 80,000 books. Knowing that, and the teachers at the, this remote learning, they had, they'd never done it before at this level. And so at the very least, the teachers knew that their students all had books. They all knew they had books, so they could at least teach to that. And on another level, all these kids had something to escape into, right? So we've been doing that nonstop. We have 20 plus schools we've already completed. We have a waiting list of another 20 schools. There is no shortage of schools that would like us to do this with them. Now that schools are coming back, we are going to regroup a little bit and see if their needs have changed at all now that they have, gotten a little better with the remote distance learning. But it has been really incredible to see, and to see up close what the situation really is on the ground. And it's not good. It's really not. These kids have lost a lot of learning. They really have. So we're doing
it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting, Ruth, because it highlights, I think, a theme that, again, has come up in maybe almost everyone, if not every one of these conversations we've been having over the last 6 months, which is how much, any crisis, but a pandemic like this disproportionately affects the folks who are already vulnerable so much more than everybody else, right? I mean, to my point where I started, which I didn't even think about, so my kid's home, she's got a room full of books, and it's not, but people who already didn't have enough access to literature and high quality materials and literacy, really, right? Now the little access they had is now gone. Mm-hmm. Which, to your point, is just really bad.
And we obviously, and we're all big believers in books, and it's in many ways seems to be an afterthought so often. And it's definitely not with these schools and these kids. I mean, these books are so important for so many reasons. I mean, just by putting a book in someone's home when there isn't one, the chances of becoming literate goes up exponentially just by doing that. It's just, so, we're going to keep doing our best. Another example of how the situation is, last weekend before last, we hosted a drive-through grab and go here at our space. We have a really big parking lot, and it was to provide backpacks with school supplies, sweatpants, snack bags, activity kits, and then bags for caregivers, for foster care parents, caregivers, and foster care kids. And we thought maybe we'd get 200 RSVPs, and we thought that would be manageable. And, we just opened up for registration, and I had to turn it off at 600 RSVPs. And normally with these kinds of things, you have like an easy 50% drop off. We barely had any drop off. Everybody showed up. People who couldn't show up asked if we could mail it to them. I mean, it's just, the great thing is that, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. I know that, and I know that there are so many good people working really hard to do a lot of good stuff. So that is the silver lining. We are seeing organizations just showing up and working hard and risking their health and just to help, right? And just not waiting for answers, and not waiting to get through the red tape, So that's been nice.
I mean, it's clear that, obviously demand has skyrocketed in the last, few months. Do you, and that's probably not changing anytime soon, do you anticipate the ability to continue to meet that demand?
As long as, we are one of the few, maybe not few, but we are one of the organizations that is technically essential and is providing a COVID response. And so many foundations and funders, as everybody knows, have completely shifted their priorities, right, to meet these essential needs right now. And so thankfully we are fitting in with that in many ways. I mean, food is first on everybody's mind, right? But so as long as people keep funding us the way that they have, we'll be able to keep doing this. Thank God we've been, and we applied for every loan and applied for, and we've been, so in that way, knock wood, we're in, really good shape. We just got another grant to do, I think, another 6 schools. So that's really exciting. So hopefully the funding will continue and we'll keep doing it. It's not that expensive to do a school, so.
So Lori had a question she put in the chat about just your background and how you ended up, doing this.
So my background actually is in showbiz. I used to be an actress and then I was a producer for a long time, but I have always been interested in education and children's education in particular. My mother was one of the first women on our local Board of Education growing up. And I was always, it was instilled in me how important access to opportunity and knowledge, awareness of opportunity can be a game changer for anybody. And to me, education is exactly that answer, right? Is that solution. And so I have always been interested in this. When I had been in showbiz for a long time, I started getting my foot into, doing more of this nonprofit work. And I realized that was much more my calling. And thankfully, my life changed and, I got married and I had a child and I was able to completely pivot and put all of my energy into this. And I've always been, let's just get something done. So this was something that I could see we could do given sort of this group of friends and resources that I had around me. And so I thought, wow, I think if we start with this, we can grow from here. And this is something everybody can get done, right? And so that's how it started. I also had been working on another project and I was at the Department of Children and Family Services in their waiting room, and there was a little boy lying across the crappy chairs, and he was reading some frayed magazine that was way beyond his age. He was probably just looking at the pictures. He had a trash bag under the seat with all of his stuff in it, and I just thought, are you kidding me? We can't do better than that. Are you kidding? So that was part of it too, was me thinking, well, at the very least, we could put some good books in that waiting room and we could make sure that kid has a nice backpack or a bag, And so that was sort of how it all started.
Well, speaking of that waiting room, I didn't say this earlier, we're so thrilled to have your books in our waiting room at the Carr Center for all the kids that come in, which actually, in part, I'll answer Laura's question about if you provide books in other languages, because I know the answer is yes, because we have at least Spanish books as well in our waiting room for our clients. Any other languages?
We've been asked also with Carr, sometimes with Korean books, we can access those. We generally don't get asked for, mostly Spanish are the other language, is the other language we get asked. But we have access to, we have booksellers that we can go to probably to get books in any language. So, but it's probably Spanish. Mm-hmm.
And Laura has one other question, which was, how do you choose the schools?
So we choose the schools, they they don't have a library to start. They need to be Title I, so serving free and reduced lunch, majority of the kids in poverty. We also want to identify a school that has some good parent body that can help support this when we leave. Right now, we stay in touch with the schools. We provide them with a budget for 3 years. We give them a budget to supplement their books. But at a certain point, we want to turn it over to the school. And so there needs to be either a group of staff members or parents who want to maintain this space. And so all of those are factors. But first, they need to be Title I to qualify.
That makes sense. Right. Particularly the idea that there has to be some ability for it to be sustainable beyond, your guys' involvement.
Right.
Gary has a question. Gary, why don't you unmute yourself?
Okay. 2 questions. One, are you a 501c3?
Yes.
Okay. Another question. What's your annual budget to do all this work?
Well, we started at $30,000 and we are now at about a little under $250,000.
Okay. And your reach primarily now is in LA County?
Yes, primarily. Mm-hmm.
And my last question is, are there other organizations doing this in other parts of California, or is this a unique thing to you guys?
Well, the book bundle thing that we're currently doing, yes, as far as I know, is unique. However, the book distributor that we had been working with took our model, because they're a national book distributor, and sent it out all over the country to say, this is what we're doing in Los Angeles. And so I think there's been some bites. So I think that, it's a formula. It's not complicated. And so this absolutely could be replicated. So I'm hoping that it's being done. And there are literacy organizations all over the country, obviously. So, but as far as I know, we were the pioneers of the book bundles.
Jeff, you've been patiently waiting with a question, I know.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
May I ask that you go back one slide, because something on it disturbs me quite a bit. A little further. You talked about statistics right there. Right now, you focused your program on 2 standalone feel-good type activities that you can't look to the downside to. But what really concerns me is how 71% of women that you've obviously surveyed become pregnant by age 21. Because this just magnifies and multiplies the very problem you're treating. Do you not have or reference sending out these women for either contraception or other issues, or is that somehow precluded in the thinking of this program? Because 71% of these women having children who end up in the foster system creates a hole that you can never climb out of through literacy or any other way. So, as a physician, I look at this problem and I see it as a simplified program that could be adopted, but wonder why it hasn't been adopted, or what the resistances are, or maybe I'm unaware of any preclusions that exist within these charitable organizations to offer these services to these women.
Okay, so.
I'm a great supporter of the concepts that you're actively pursuing, but I see this as a whirlpool of unending supply for you, unfortunately, as future goes on.
Right. So I would love to be out of business because there's no one to help, right? I would love it. What you are touching on is exactly the issues. Let me back up. So you are unaware of some programs out there. So here's a couple of things. One is this is the population that we serve, right? These are some of the outcomes, right? There are multiple organizations out there that are entirely focused on breaking the cycle of pregnant and parenting foster teens. There are a few of them that are top shelf that we partner with for exactly this reason. It is a huge problem. There aren't enough of these organizations, but the ones that are doing it are doing a really good job. The Department of Children and Family Services is supposed to provide all of the counseling that all of these kids qualify for counseling. So there are a lot of organizations out there doing this. And rather than us start yet another program, we choose to enhance other people's programs that are doing good work so that it doesn't continue to get diluted, right? So the more service you can provide more holistically, the better the chance of changing some of these outcomes. So that is absolutely a serious problem, and it is absolutely on a lot of organizations' radars, just as, intervening with the fathers of these children and Project Fatherhood. And there are a lot of really great organizations specifically focused on those bullet points. And so we seek them out and try to help them do their jobs better. If that makes sense, if that answers your question.
Anybody else with a question? You can pop it in the chat. You can do a real hand raise, a virtual hand raise. I have one, just because you alluded to it earlier, Ruth, which is your relationship, if any, with foster care counts, or what was foster care counts. I don't even know if they're still around anymore.
They're sunsetting, they're evolving into another organization, or sort of a satellite organization called Foster Nation. But Foster Care Counts is exactly what it sounds like. It was an organization started by Jeannie Pritzker to better outcomes for foster youth. And they used to do something on community college campuses called Goods for Grays, where former foster youth, if they were keeping a certain level of academics, would be invited to what was essentially a pop-up shop at the college. That would happen, every quarter or something like that. So they would rent a truck and bring clothing and all the stuff that we have here to these community colleges. And Jeannie and I just got our heads together and said, wouldn't it be great if we had a permanent location for that, so you don't have to put everything on a truck all the time and kids could make appointments. And so that was sort of the idea was hatched to bring that concept into a permanent location. So,
got it. Makes sense. Lori, I think I saw your hand up. You're muted, Lori.
You alluded to the fact that you were getting grant funding, but I'm wondering, how else do you raise money for this organization?
So we have not done any kind of gala yet, which, a lot of organizations do. We obviously aren't doing anyone soon, but doing any soon. But we do a lot of grant writing. We have a very active board, small board, but active. And we do the traditional, send out mailers, do email fundraising. We have a lot of people doing Facebook fundraisers. That's individuals give us money, corporations will write checks. That's our basic pathway to fundraising. Mm-hmm.
And one other point, how many volunteers are helping you with this?
So we have obviously we have to be very careful. So we have a small little skeleton crew that comes to the office regularly. There's between 3 and 4 of us. It's, this is a 6,000 square foot space. So we have a lot of space, but for example, for this backpack giveaway that we did, we had 20 plus volunteers throughout the day, and it was all outside, all physically distanced. So, masks, hand sanitizer, gloves if you wanted them, all of that kind of stuff. So anywhere between, depending on what we're doing, we have the ability to invite people here because of the way we're laid out. And it depends on the event, right? It depends on what we're doing, how many people we need. And we're building out a teen advisory board right now. But there's been, a lot of organizations and people who are just chomping at the bit to do something. And so far, we've been safe. And
okay, I think I see another, no, maybe I don't see another hand raised. Any other questions while we have Ruth here with us for another minute or two? Then I'll close with sort of my my last question, Ruth, which is, other than money, because that's the easy one, and funding, what's the biggest challenge that you guys face?
I think bandwidth. I think just having more people able to help on a regular basis, because we could do a lot more if we had a bigger crew to do things. I think that's it. I think that's, besides the money, of course.
Because the need is just staggering and always there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still, I'll be sitting the rest of the day, if not the rest of the week, with that 300 to 1
Yes.
in my head, and just thinking it's, just unimaginable.
Yes.
To not have a book to pick up. And, as you just really showed us this morning, all the other things that leads to,
Right.
And all the other challenges that creates in a kid's life and a family's life. And it's interesting because when you started, I was sort of thinking about, and you sort of presented, the foster work and the literacy work as two separate things. And they are, but they're also, I think, deeply connected and woven together. Because I'm sure a lot of the factors and predictors, are common and send a kid or a family from one side to the other.
Right.
Well, thank you for being so generous with your time and letting me twist your arm into doing this today. Thank you, everybody, for making a little bit of time to be with us. And we're back on our weekly schedule now. No breaks in the foreseeable future that I know of. So hopefully, you'll all join us next week. And Ruth, give my love to your boys, your son, and
my love to your family. And I just want to thank you all. I really appreciate it. I appreciate having this platform, and nice to see your face, Rabbi.
Take care, Ruth.